Everybody, I hope everybody's still feeling fine. It's only the first day. If you're already suffering, I have bad news for you. People here are, of course, the intelligent people who worry about security in their network and who made the right choice to come to my session. My name is Alain Geenrits. You know, when somebody has a French first name and a Dutch last name, he must be Belgian. I used to work for VMware. I was always in operations and configuration manager. I'll talk about that, not too much about me. You're here for the session, not for me. I went to Blue Medora, remember the plugins for operations? Yay. And now I'm an independent contractor. I do a lot of work for Comdivision. So I acquired a very specific set of skills over a very long period to scan your network. All right, let's dive into it. So compliance and security checking. I think it's a very important subject. For some of you, it's a vital one because you have legal obligations, of course. I divide it, it's my division, in a regulatory compliance on the one side. That's if you have a company like a bank who has to comply with the Payment Card Industry Association set of guidelines, payment card industry, not the interface, not PCI, or HIPAA for health industry, even here in Europe. Some health providers, clinics and so on have to comply with Health Industry Professional Association, that's it. And you need to scan that. I have a little story about that later on, but let's set the scene first. And then you have security compliance, what I call security compliance, namely all the ISOs, ISO 72001. A lot of companies in Europe have to adhere to that standard to get a label of approval, but there are others. There's CIS, American ones, FISMA, DISA, and one that I like a lot is the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Why do I like it a lot? It's a personal thing. It's open source. It's a group of volunteers. Nobody makes money off MITRE. And the aim of MITRE is to make a standard and to make it so that everybody speaks the same language. What do I mean by that? If you go on their website, you can download probably for you, the enterprise framework, and you'll see TTPs. Tactics, techniques, and protocols. And what it means is that you see in every category of tactics, like network breaching, you see different little tactics, and then you see the techniques behind it, like technique could be password guessing, I'm just naming one from the top of my head, and then the procedures you can see what is actually used to do that, but also for the people interested, and I, for one, I'm a guy who hates all the war stories about all the hacker groups and people calling in military names and stuff like that. I hate it. It's just security, it's our industry. But sometimes it is useful to know, like, hey, this group, APT42, the infamous North Korean hackers, they use these techniques, okay? But I think for us, that's not so useful. For us, it's useful to know what is the name of the technique, what is the name of the procedure, so that we can defend against it, okay? I'll stop about MITRE, you hear I'm enthusiastic. Some history on this. When I was at VMware 2013, we had a product called vCenter Configuration Manager. Anybody remember it? Oh! Special prize to those three people. The bootcamp alone was a week in Munich. It was a fantastic program. It was also a product they bought in. And you could do the compliance checking, but you had to pay for every framework, like HIPAA, like Sarbanes-Oxley. So anybody remember Sarbanes-Oxley? And it was rather difficult to set up, but you could do very nice things like Active Directory scanning, scanning of security checks on your connected workstations, like are all the USB ports disconnected and so on and so on. It was also the product that refused to die. I think it was put in end of life like 3 times. I guess every time there was a big customer who said like, and they got it back. But now it's dead, it's gone. But what they learned from the compliance checking, they put into operations these days. So that's why I wanted to mention it. So what is the difference? Today I'm going to talk briefly, and of course my demo will be slides because time is limited. We can talk afterwards. So I'm talking about VROps. I'm sorry, I'm still calling it VROps. I'm still from the time when we called it VCOps, VROps, now AROps, Aria Operations, vRealize Operations Compliance Scanning. How many people know that if you have operations, you have this for free? You know that? Okay, everybody goes, yes, okay. Fine. And then the product, which was called Cloud Health Secure State, which was already bizarre because Secure State was a product that VMware bought, and they put it in the Cloud Health family, which is about costing, and Secure State is about security scanning. So they renamed it in VMware Aria Automation for Secure Clouds, and then probably because nobody can pronounce it, they renamed it into, they didn't rename it. If you look it up, it's end of availability right now. And now there is a product called Tanzu Guardrails, which used to be called VMware Aria Guardrails. But at the moment, it's Tanzu Guardrails. I'm telling you here what I know, what I found out. It's a community session, so I can say what I want, I hope. But I'm still trying to find out myself all the name changes. There have been a lot of name changes. A lot of the products that were renamed Aria last year at Explore are now called Tanzu Intelligence Services. Some people apparently know that because they're not. I'm also going to find out this week some of the changes. We'll see. Okay? But the difference is, operations is in your operations instance, so either installed on-premise at your facility, or if you have the SaaS version, there's no difference in the SaaS version. It only does scanning for vSphere, AWS, and Azure. It's only detection, it's not remediation. So it does the vSphere hardening, the vSAN hardening, and SXT, and then these standards, SIS, ISO, PCI, HIPAA, and the others. These are actually packages you can install. The guardrails, let's call it guardrails for short, is a cloud product. So this is only for your cloud accounts, okay? Not even your VMC accounts, not even your VMware cloud accounts. It's only AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. The exception being that now in the latest version, you can scan Kubernetes clusters. And those Kubernetes clusters can, of course, now also be Tanzu instances, so that you can scan those. It's detection and remediation. You can actually do remediation runs. I will show you. It's all these standards plus MITRE and GDPR for us in Europe, NIST, and it does also remediation. I put it in twice because it's so important. Okay? Now, I think both of them are very important. The ops compliance, I'll talk about in a second. To keep your environment secure, I think it's crucial, even if you don't use PCI or ISO. The other one, I was listening to a podcast. I'll link to my blog post at the end, you can read it there. There's a very good blog series, the Cybersecurity Sauna. Anybody know it? It's from the Finnish guys, of course, Sauna Finnish. The company was recently renamed. I forget the new name, but they're security guys. They do a podcast, and they had 2 guests, high-level consultants who worked a lot in the cloud, and who said, like, if you have a few cloud accounts, like on AWS, on Azure, how can you keep track of your security settings if you don't use a tool? A simple scanning tool like this one. Doesn't have to be AI or what have you, but to do it manually, it can't be done. Remember a few years ago, the little fiasco where there was a change of settings in AWS S3 storage, so that a lot of people suddenly had their S3 buckets free on the internet and they didn't know about it. You have to have a product where you can establish rules and a product that scans continuously for all those loopholes. Really, believe me. I worry. So let's dive into the operations part. Yeah, I know the layout is shit, but I tried to change this morning for the Explore template, and that's how it ended up. But the content is more important than the presentation. You activate it in policies. If you know operations a bit, a policy is a configuration file. So this means that you can activate the scanning for a group of objects. It can be one cluster, one host. Doesn't make any sense, but anyway. But of course, it can be a group that you make of all your production hosts and not a test development, for example. It works through alerts. So it does the scanning, and then it will show you alerts for everything that is not compliant. And you can get that in a nice report, but there is no remediation. Actually, the only way to do remediation would be, but I haven't seen a customer do it yet, but it's feasible, is if you link actions to the alerts in operations. In operations, an alert can have, an alert consists of symptoms. You can link actions and recommendations to those symptoms. The actions can be orchestrated workflows. So I know at least one customer who set up all the compliance remediation himself in Orchestrator, but without linking to this. But you could link it to remediate. How does it look? Well, in compliance, in operations, you go to the central dashboard, you see your environment, your on-prem data center, VMC instances now, and you can activate, you see here, I activated in my lab the vSphere scanning, not the others, enabled it in a policy, and then immediately I get, well, for CIS, 10 out of 10 are non-compliant. Hey, it's my test lab. And for ISO, 2 out of 11 are not compliant. Now, a little story about this. I was really doing last year a project for a large German hospital. And the person working with me, very nice guy, he said like, hey Alain, next week we can't meet because I have the consultants here. I said, the consultants? He said, yeah, the guys for ISO, we're doing ISO scanning and I'm busy all week with those guys, I can't meet with you. I said like, but why haven't we activated that yet in operations? He said, can we? What does it cost? I said, it's free, except for my time, of course. And we activated it, and true story, swear on my mother's grave, the next week he came back, he said the consultants stopped in IT for 1 hour because I gave them the report from operations. They were baffled that something like that existed, and they went away with the report. So it really works. So this is what you get when you dive into the details. You get a score, object breakdown, here hosts and virtual machines. 2 hosts have a problem, so it says here, ESXi host is violating guidelines. And then, as I said, if you dive into the alert for this host, you see, for example, one symptom is enable Active Directory authentication is false and it should be true. That's one of the guidelines. And you have a ton of them, of course. Okay. Now I know feedback from some people is that the guidelines in operations at the moment are not completely in line with the latest publication of the hardening guidelines. The good news is you can add your own if something is missing. Okay. Now, that's for our vSphere environment, that's on-prem. Let's look at our cloud environments. So the original secure state, or how will we name it, guardrails, was actually a product that ran on AWS itself, that has data streams going into a Kinesis database on AWS, and then used a graph database to bring everything about. I linked here to a little YouTube movie where actually an engineer explains how she wrote this, what the architecture is. You can look at that. I don't think it makes a lot of sense because the product is probably going away, but anyway. So the good thing is, when you are running secure cloud, you access this screen through your VMware Cloud Console. When you log in, you see all the products you have access to. I'm not sure about the pricing structure, please don't ask me. And you see the findings by category, a breakdown by services, regions, your cloud accounts, your Kubernetes clusters, and top 5 rules. Guess what one of the top 5 rules is? EBS volume in AWS should be encrypted. All your volumes encrypted. Security groups should not have public access, and so on and so on. Most of these are on AWS, okay? And compliance checking. So that's your main screen in secure state. Excuse me. The nice thing is, if you dive in one of the security problems, it will show you the environment as a graph, probably while there's a graph database behind it. So this is an EC2 instance with everything connected, like a network interface, a security group, obviously an EC2 image, and it will tell you, excuse me, on the right-hand side, configuration details, it's a US East 2, and howdy ho, you have a public IP address. So how many people would there be in the world that have launched an instance on AWS and don't realize anymore that they have a public IP address? I have one customer, but it's a while ago, who had their complete SAP instance on the internet on an IP address. And what they said in their defense was, yes, but we don't have a DNS record linked to it, so nobody knows the address. Sure. And leprechauns that still exist. So control groups, the frameworks in secure state have control groups that you can visualize. You can change them, you can add to them. So for example, this one is the control group 8.9, access control for ISO 27001. And you see the description of all the rules he is checking constantly in the background for you. Okay. All the rules that you can set up and that are set up automatically by the frameworks, like you should not grant unrestricted access to API groups, obviously, and so on and so on. There's tens and tens and tens of them, more than you could scan manually. Okay? And then it will present you findings with, of course, a risk score. So like EC2 instance should not have a public IP address. You should, of course, restrict access to SSH port 22, obviously, and so on and so on. They are grouped by severity, so it pays to have a report or to have a look at them daily. Okay? And now in secure state, you can run remediations, but it's a bit of labor that you have to do. You actually have to go to GitHub and download them. The remediations are actually Python scripts. But you can edit them, you can add yourself. So, but for some findings, like let's take port 22 access, there is a remediation done that resets that access simply. But it's not very straightforward, and it's only for AWS and Azure. Okay. Excuse me. Now, I stop it there because, you know, last year VMware launched the whole initiative around Aria and Aria Hub. And Aria Hub, let me quickly recapitulate, take back what they said, well, explain what they said. Aria Hub is to be a central cloud program instance portal with a graph database behind it, the Aria graph database. And the objective is, I was at a briefing here last year from the management BU, the objective is that data coming in from parts of the Aria suite all go into that database and enhance the object. So operation knows through the vSphere interface that you have VMware clusters with VMware hosts, with VMs. He creates objects for that in the Aria Hub database. And then you have other parts like Aria cost that will calculate cost, but will associate them, let's say, new fields to those objects to enhance them. The whole objective being that there is a rich programming interface to access it, and that you can actually then link the data to also external programs, like a connector for service now was in the making, others were possible. Now, Aria Hub is being developed. It's now called Tanzu Hub, part of the intelligence services. And this is the hub interface, where you see all the accounts connected. Need I say only cloud accounts or Kubernetes accounts, not vSphere. I'm not sure myself where that is going. Not VMC either. There's a lot to find out this week. And you see different parts here like cost, but one part here is governance. And actually the governance widget is Tanzu Guardrails. It's an extra program that you install. And when you click on that, you get the summary, rather similar to Secure State, but in a more modern interface. So yes, it's scanning of your cloud environments just like Secure State. So you get findings, critical, high, medium, what have you, drifts, this is going to be important, violations, and so on and so on. Again, the top accounts with the problem, and so on and so on. It's a little program, but that does most of what Secure State does in a better interface. So again, you get security posture policies. So on your accounts, all the rules from the frameworks or that you made yourself, because you can make your own, like S3 bucket should have object lock enabled, elastic IP address should be attached, blah, blah, blah. You can bring those in. Again, also for MITRE, for ISO, for the others, or make your own and have guardrails scan for it. And then, very interestingly, with those findings, you see that, for example, here, IAM password policy is not strong. If you click on it, you can look at the whole description of what is happening, but you can suppress it. I really don't know why they built that in. What's the use of scanning if you then say, oh, I don't want to know at the moment, let's suppress. But okay. But you can click on remediate here. And remediate here in guardrails is new. It's much better than in a Secure State with the Python scripts. Because if you click on that, it will show you the drift. So it will say you in a nice JSON format, the drifted state is your password age is 90 days, minimum password length is 42, and according to the rule, it should be only 10 days, and minimum password length 45. I can see why some people would drift from that standard. Anyway, so, and then with one click you can remediate, because then the template is applied. So could be very interesting for your environment. Okay, I'm going to mention, because it's a community session, other options. I recently did some well, some tests, not work tests, with Roomcast. People are here, so certainly tomorrow at the exhibition, so I'll let them do their own work. But I think it's an interesting product because there are some niceties for techies like us. Like if they do scanning, you get, where is it? Where is it? Well, you get all the standards like GDPR, but also the German BSI IT Grundschutz. Cyber Essentials, I have no idea, but somewhere, top issues, I think it's on the next one. No, these are all the essentials, but somewhere you can, let's go back, somewhere you can also see, oh, here, KB articles. This I found very interesting. It does the scanning and it will tell you for that object, hey, there are 4 issues known in KB articles. They don't pay me, but I find that great anyways. Okay, so that's Roomcast. Okay, so if I worried you about your security or anything like that, don't. I wrote a blog post about it. This session will be available, or you can scan the QR to get to my blog post. It also links to the Cybersecurity Sauna podcast. And since I used to work as a volunteer in the hands-on labs here, I love the hands-on labs. I use them every week myself. This was the slide demo, but you can go to the hands-on labs. There are 2 Aria guardrails getting started, hall 242102, and Aria Operations getting started 2401, which allow you to actually test the products in a live environment, except for guardrails, it's not really live, but anyway, simulated live, so that you can get the hang of it. As with all these sessions, I thank you, and I'm available for questions afterwards at the desk. Thank you.